Good morning, friends. To begin this morning, I wanted to prove that what I talked about last week was no idle threat. I met now a dear friend, David James, just last year at our Spiritual Renewal Week. Or gosh, I guess it was a year and a half ago, before COVID. And we were, at the time, just joking, and I didn't know him. I didn't know any of what he did. And he's a martial artist, and a very accomplished one. And he sort of jokingly teased me that he would hit me with a double leg takedown. And just by looking at him, I thought, that's no idle threat. That guy looks like he could totally do that. And then months later, when I talked to him and got to know him more and discovered that he was quite a competent martial artist, I said, oh my gosh, you weren't joking. You could have really done that. And he said, yeah, there was no idle threat. So this is no idle threat. I do, in fact, play the cello. And today I wanted to start by playing some of Swamiji's music because Swami's melodies are so lovely, and sometimes stripping away the words actually helps us to tune into the vibration of the melody a little more clearly. And today the topic we'll be talking about is the sacred opportunity of every day and of every moment. And when I was thinking about this, his song from the Secrets of Love album, Love Like a Garden Needs Tending Daily, came to mind because I thought that was such a perfect analogy for what we'll be discussing today in the prayer. And so as I play this, why don't you close your eyes and just feel that this is actually the melody of your own heart, your own aspiration, your own love, expressing itself in humility and devotion to God. And now let's listen to this Whispers from Eternity for the week. This is Whispers number 133, Demand for Quickening Activity. Let the waves of thy power dance on the river of my activity. As thou art intelligently busy making atoms, flowers, universes, so teach me to be cheerfully busy always. Thou art ever busy, yet eternally smiling in joyous hearts. Bless me, that I may wear thy unfading smile as I work in the factory of life. Om. Peace. Amen. Isn't that a beautiful prayer? And so simple. I loved also the song that Swami wrote there, Love Like a Garden Needs Tending Daily. And if you've spent much time with gardeners, it's not a overly grandiose job. It's very humble, and it's very methodical and diligent and just needs doing, like Swami says in that song, every single day. And it's not flashy or impressive, but it's something that needs to be done. But it's through the act of loving discipline that something truly beautiful can grow. And I was thinking that that's such a beautiful analogy to the opportunity that we all have in every moment of every day. Because this is a sacred opportunity. Every inhalation, every exhalation is a sacred opportunity to redirect the current of your heart's feelings a little more closer to God. There's that beautiful chant that Swami Kriyananda wrote How shall I love thee, Lord my God? With every breath I breathe. How shall I serve thee, Lord my God? With every breath I breathe. How shall I seek thee, Lord my God? How shall I serve thee? And it's always with every breath I breathe. And that can seem like an impossible ask, but it's also such a wondrous invitation that one of our great opportunities in every day is to just try to tend that garden of our love for God, to tend that garden of our industrious self-effort for improvement and for attunement. And that prayer, which we'll dig into in a second, gives us some secrets for how to do that effectively. But before I jump into that, I think what's been very inspiring to me in the last few weeks is just thinking about the loving discipline of effort and of just consistency and applying yourself patiently. Because when a gardener plants, for example, a tulip bulb, you don't get to see the flower already. You have to plant it and trust that it will blossom. And there are so many things that are outside of your control that could kill that little tulip. There could be a gopher, there could be a bad weather, there could be just the wrong acidity in the soil, perhaps. I'm not that competent of a gardener, so I don't know necessarily the list for that particular flower. But there are many things that are outside of your control. And we can do our best to plant it in fertile soil and to protect it and to do it at the appropriate times and to do it in an intelligent way, planting the bulb right side up. There are stories of some old monastics in Kali Yuga that were instructed by their superiors to plant trees upside down as an act of loyalty or of obedience, even though they knew that by so doing it would kill the plant. And that's no longer what's necessary, thank God, in this Dwapara Yuga. We need to work intelligently with God. But we work intelligently with God in every single moment, like that gardener, just doing the best that we can, tending to the seeds of every moment, of every inhalation, of every thought, feeling, and reaction, tending to them. And over time, and time plus faith plus the grace of God, plus our energy, will result in the flowering of a most beautiful garden. And I grew up at Ananda village and got to witness a little portion of the evolution of the gardens at Crystal Hermitage, which are truly astral. They're just absolutely stunning, not only in their physical grandeur, but in their inner vibration and in their incredible spiritual beauty. Those gardens are so uplifting in a way that transcends just physical beauty. And I've also have been blessed with the opportunity to actually help in those gardens, and I've volunteered there, and I've helped cultivate them to a very small degree. And I'm amazed how when the springtime comes and the 15,000 tulips blossom and the apple trees and the cherry trees, and it looks like a picture out of an astral painting or a snapshot out of an astral vacation, how everything looks so incredible. But in those moments, most people don't see the hours that were spent in the mud, digging, planting tulips, that were spent in the cold rain, pulling weeds, and hauling in new fertile soil, and so on and so forth. But because I happened to volunteer there, I did see those moments. And to me, actually, that makes the garden, when it flowers, all the more beautiful, because we got to see the whole process that brings the flower to its completion. And that's a wonderful analogy for what we are all going through in ourselves. But so let's remember, we all want to be that blossoming flower of divine potential. But if we want to really express that potential, we need to take care of the moments. And Yogananda said that the moments are more important than the years. And that if you take care of the moments, the incarnations even will take care of themselves. And that is such an incredible promise that I think we all would benefit from just meditating on a little more deeply. Because for the most part, as far as I've been able to witness, and as I have heard from much wiser minds than my own, whenever we are fearful, it's usually because we are anxious about something that's yet to come. And whenever we are regretful, it's because we wish something had been different in the past. But if we can truly live in the here and now, then we find contentment, we find actualization, we find peace, perhaps. But that's not to say that we should become complacent. In fact, quite the opposite. We should be incredibly energetic and powerful in our pursuit of the divine goal. But we don't have to worry about the result. This is nishkan karma. We learn to act without desiring the fruit of the result. I was in a wonderful satsang with Nayaswami Jyotish and Devi, the spiritual directors of Ananda Worldwide. And Jyotish just sprinkled out this incredible pithy statement about the essence of nishkan karma and true karma yoga. And he said, relinquish your desire for the fruits of your actions, but don't relinquish the efforts of your actions. I thought that was great, meaning put out the work, put out the energy, concentrate, focus, apply yourself, but don't worry about what's going to happen. Just be here now, be in this moment. Worship God in this breath, in this sacred opportunity of every day. There's a beautiful hymn that I didn't grow up Catholic, so I only heard it secondhand, but I think it goes something like this. Lord, this is the day you have made for me. I will rejoice and be glad in it. And what a wonderful prayer that is. This is the day God has made for us. And time, which can be such a terrible villain sometimes, because it tricks us into thinking that time is the only reality in which we operate. But on the other hand, the only thing that really ever exists is now. And so every new day is a fresh opportunity to recreate ourselves and to put ourselves more concertedly on the path towards our higher self. Yogananda said in a beautiful talk that he said, every day when you wake up, it's a new incarnation. That the old incarnation of yesterday has died and you are now reborn. And you may act and redefine yourself in this very moment. And I like to think too that every breath can be that. Every exhalation is a little death. And every inhalation is a revival and a renewal. And for us, if we approach it with the right attitude, it can be a renewal of our devotion. It can be a renewal of our self-effort, of our will, of our concentration. And these are yogic qualities that we all need to cultivate, to go deeper in our meditations, to be deeper in our love for God, to be able to pray with more sincerity. Practice, 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 practice. There's that famous saying among musicians, how do you get into Carnegie Hall? Practice. How do you pray so God will hear you? Practice. How do you meditate so you actually feel God's peace? Practice. But there's so many hours of our day that we're not sitting at our meditation bench, that we're not sitting with hands folded in prayer. And what are we doing in those moments? That's really what I'm trying to come to in this, is where are you between sadhanas? Where are you between moments? Where are you between working and resting? And how are you holding every moment? Are you holding every moment as a uncomfortable and obnoxious obligation that's being forced upon you? Or can we switch that and turn it into the most sacred gift? That God has given you this opportunity to realize more completely your divine potential in this very moment, regardless of what that moment is or what its circumstances are offering you. But every moment, with every breath I breathe, how shall I love thee, Lord my God? So now let's take a closer examination of this prayer and see if Yogananda offers us any breadcrumbs to a deeper understanding of how to live in this way. Let the waves of thy power dance on the river of my activity. As thou art intelligently busy making atoms, flowers, universes, so teach me to be cheerfully busy always. Let's stop right there, just in the first two sentences, because I think there's some real gems to be extracted here already. Let the waves of thy power dance on the river of my activity. Again, another gem, another kernel of great, I think, wisdom that I heard was in a workshop with Nayaswami Bharat. He said, the aspect of God as power is important to tune into, because until you can actually feel God's power, not as a mental concept, but as an experience of God's vitality, God's tremendous power coursing through your body, like that chant, what is this life flowing through my veins? What is this power flowing through my will? Can it be other than divine? And once you really feel that, and you will intuitively know the answer to that rhetorical question, can it be other than divine? No, it is divine. It is God. It is God's vitality flowing through me. That will teach you how to disconnect yourself from the thought that you are the doer. And that's what Bharat was talking about. He said, tuning into the power aspect of God will enable you to really feel that God is the doer, because you'll recognize that it is only by His power that we can act at all, and that really our little ego is just a little impersonator of the divine power, like we talked about in one of our previous Whispers from Eternity. And so when you feel God's power playing on the ripples of the river of our daily activity, as this prayer says, then you know that it's God dancing through you. And already that will enable us to relax and to enjoy even the outpouring of tremendous effort. It becomes a joyful experience rather than one of tension and anxiety. And how do we do that? Because again, it's just one thing to say, feel God's power. Okay, great. Waiting hasn't come yet, right? But there are techniques to do this. There are ways to practice this. There are ways to magnetize that experience to you scientifically so that you too can experience this for yourself. Simple things. Practicing Yogananda's energization exercises, practicing perhaps the Whispers from Eternity prayer, the demand to recharge your body battery, simply saying yes to life. When you say yes to life, you draw in a fresh wave of enthusiasm, a new current of energy to accomplish whatever you need to do. Perhaps doing some yoga postures. Yoga postures rid the body of tension and toxins and help the energy to move unimpeded through the body, as well as draw in new, fresh vitality from the surrounding universe. I myself have been doing some sun salutations from Ananda Yoga, which incorporates a beautiful affirmation. And I've been doing these sun salutations every morning, and when I remember to, every noon when the sun is at its zenith. And I do them very consciously, very devotionally, as if I was bowing to Yogananda. And I'm trying to feel that with every inhalation I'm drawing in his vitality, his energy, his power. And with every exhalation I'm releasing and surrendering and completely expanding into his presence. And I have found it to be so vitalizing to my body, to my mind, to my heart. And when you feel that vitality, perhaps subtly at first, I'm not saying that I feel the lion-like roar of God's power resounding in the temple of my heart. I'm just saying, I feel better. I feel more powerful than I did before. I feel more confident in the self than I did before. I feel that I can meet my obstacles better than I could before. And that's God. And I think, just like I was saying in the beginning, if we plant those seeds and cultivate them faithfully, they will grow in time. And I have enough experience to know that if I just keep doing what I'm doing now, in 10 years, my experience of God as the doer will be much deeper. But just because it's not deep now doesn't mean I shouldn't make the effort. If I want to experience God then, I need to practice now, just like a musician. I keep making a lot of different analogies, and I hope you can follow me. But I can listen to Yo-Yo Ma play or another great cellist, and I can say, wow, they're incredible. But if I want to play like them, I have to start now. I have to start practicing, regardless of how far away from that goal I am. So if we want to feel God's presence, we need to start practicing now. And that is the sacred opportunity of this day. So you can choose to practice God's presence now. And then the second sentence, as thou art intelligently busy making atoms, flowers, universes, so teach me to be cheerfully busy always. Isn't that wonderful? I love that he goes from atoms to flowers, which is, or at least we're still in we start infinitesimal that, I can't even perceive how small an atom is. And then we go to flowers, which are at least small and perceivable. But then we go to universes. And it's wonderfully vast. I enjoy that a lot. But apparently, and I think Master did this for our benefit, when Master was very, very busy and industrious for God, building his work, God's work here in America, he was so busy all the time. I suspect he was so busy he wasn't able to spend as much time in meditation as perhaps he would have liked. And I think, I'm paraphrasing brutally, and I hope you'll forgive me, but there was this beautiful conversation that he said he had with Divine Mother, where he said, "Divine Mother, I'm so busy. Why are you making me so busy?" And she said, "I am running this entire universe, and I have made you responsible for a pinpoint. Can't you be responsible for this pinpoint and be in bliss, just as I run the whole show and I am constantly in bliss?" And that's just a reminder for all of us. God is busy everywhere. And so God is busy in us. And you can be just as much in that inner state of joy in your outward activity as in your inner meditation, if we can follow that inner awareness to its source. "Thou art ever busy, yet eternally smiling in joyous hearts. Bless me, that I may wear thy unfading smile as I work in the factory of life." That's such a beautiful way to close this prayer, isn't it? Bless me that I may wear thy unfading smile as I work in the factory of life. Many of us, unfortunately, at least from time to time, see work as a burden. And so sometimes I've heard, whether spoken so clearly or just implied, I've heard often people talk about how their work is a burden, or that their life doesn't exist within their working hours, that they have their time in the morning, they work, and then they get to be themselves again later. And what an unfortunate waste of a wonderful opportunity. And it doesn't matter what your work is outwardly. Your work is the outward manifestation of your inner consciousness. It's the crystallization of who you are, of your vibration in the world. And we're all trying to help make this world a better place. And so you can do that by smiling in your work. Try and bring God's joy into your work. Try and bring your highest aspirations, your noblest feelings, your deepest devotion into every moment in your working hours, to smile with God in the factory of life. And then when you finish, smile with God in your hobbies. Smile with God as you cook your meals, as you spend time with your spouse or your children, or your Zoom call with your parents, as we're all stuck in our homes once again, which I don't mind, actually. I didn't mean that to sound as bitter as it came out. But there's so much joy that is our potential. There's so much opportunity to lead a meaningful life. It's just, are we going to take it or not? Love, like a garden, needs tending daily. Inspiration, like a garden, needs tending daily. Every moment. Yogananda said you're either progressing on the spiritual path or you're regressing, that there is no idle standstill. And that is a frightening prospect. Because sometimes I know I want to just take a little vacation and hit the pause button and say, okay, I've worked really hard for 5 hours or 5 weeks or 3 years. I'm not that old, so I can't say 3 decades. 3 lifetimes. Can I just have a little break? But there is no break. Consciousness is always existing. Energy is always flowing. But what if you were to take a break consciously with God? I'm not saying that you should never rest, that you should never enjoy, that you should never, as Swami put it, recreation is when you recreate yourself. That's so enjoyable, that's so wonderful. I'm not saying you should be industrious ruthlessly, but what if you were relaxing with God? What if you enjoyed your walk in nature with God? What if you enjoyed watching your movie with God? Then even those moments you're cultivating your highest potential, your deepest aspiration, and then there's no wasted moves. In a beautiful talk I heard a few years ago, Nayaswami Dharmadas made the analogy that a good carpenter and a bad carpenter are a lot like a good yogi and an inexperienced yogi, and that the excellent carpenters never wasted a single move. Everything they did was intentional and pertained to the greater goal. There was no redos, there was no mistakes, there were no wasted efforts. Whereas an inexperienced carpenter measures, remeasures, forgets, has to check again, sizes, makes a mistake, cuts, recuts. And so for us as yogis, that would be like we are attentive to God, we forget, we become absorbed in something else, we become despondent, we become sad, we become self-deprecating. Then finally we regenerate the energy to focus again on God. And we spend so much time spinning ourselves in a big circle, when if we could have just even kept a little part of our mind with God always, tending that garden of our devotion, then we would just be there all the faster. Less wasted moves. And so we can all be that way, just by tending the garden of our love for God in every moment as a sacred opportunity. This moment, right now, who do I want to be? What direction do I want my consciousness to move towards in this moment? The rest of your life is defined by the choice you make right now. And so let's all choose to cultivate that garden of divine beauty, of inner communion with God. And then in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, in 20 lifetimes, just like at that crystal hermitage, we'll get to witness when that inner garden blooms by the grace of God, and we'll get to witness its splendor, its glory, its beauty, its inspiration. And what a joy that will be. What a joy that will be. Not only for yourself, but also for all the world. Because when the flower blooms, not only does God smile in the flower, but everyone who sees it smiles. So, by investing in every moment as a sacred opportunity from God, not only are you helping yourself, but you're helping everyone. Because you are leading a noble and meaningful life and are helping show the way for all your brothers and sisters in God to do the same. So I'll read this prayer one more time. And I encourage you to listen with a smile on your face and in your heart. This is demand for quickening activity. Let the waves of thy power dance on the river of my activity. As thou art intelligently busy making atoms, flowers, universes, so teach me to be cheerfully busy always. Thou art ever busy, yet eternally smiling in joyous hearts. Bless me, that I may wear thy unfading smile as I work in the factory of life.